This is The Other 51. I'm Brian, and this week, my guest is Tyler Dunne, and we talk about his new newsletter, Go Long. My guest this week is one of my favorite writers, one of my favorite people, one of the few people I can legitimately say I knew him before he was big time. And he is the author of the new newsletter, Go Long with Tyler Dunne. So, Tyler Dunne, welcome back to The Other 51, my man.
Great to be back. It's been, I think it's been almost a half decade since we did this. Maybe 4 years, 4.5 years. So it's good to be here.
It's so weird to not have a specific Sammy Watkins story to be quizzing you about on this, because it always seems like whenever we talk, there's another Sammy Watkins story happening. But it's been a while since you wrote that absolutely insane story on him for Bleacher Report.
We always got to go back to that well. You're right. So that is in the Go Long plans to continue the discussion on etheric bodies and other dimensions and astral realms, because I feel like there's still some meat on that bone. We got to get back into that.
Oh, that's insane. I'll link to that in show notes so people can relive that. So first of all, before we get into the newsletter and the writing and all of that, so we're recording this December 8th. So by the time this comes out, the record will be a little different, but I can stop worrying about my Bills, right? Like they're legit.
Man, they looked good last night. That was probably as impressive of a win as we've seen all season. Just I know the 49ers are all banged up, and you beat Nick Mullins. I don't think it's time to tee up the Super Bowl parade, but you're still talking about Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh. I mean, these are some of the best coaches schematically in the game, and it just seemed like the Bills just completely confused and befuddled them at every turn. I mean, Shanahan did not have an answer. Saleh did not have an answer. It was wasn't it hysterical? Like at one point after Josh Allen and the Bills scored their fourth or fifth touchdown, they were getting into the whole Saleh story on, he should be the Lions head coach and everything. It's like, well, he's getting his butt kicked today.
It was an impressive win, I think, just because there was no drama to it. Like, yeah, the Niners aren't a great team, but they went out and they played well in all three aspects of the game, which is really good. And it's a weird spot, I think, for Bills fans, because you grew up in that area that we're kind of conditioned to wait for the other shoe to drop, to wait for them to lose 4 straight and finish 9-7 and miss the playoffs. But I think that like they're in a really interesting spot as an organization and as a team, because I don't think anybody outside of the most diehard thinks they're Super Bowl contenders this year, right? Like they're not on the level of Pittsburgh or Kansas City, probably, that consistent level, but they're in that weird next step where it still feels good to talk about them making the playoffs, but they should win the division. They're probably going to win the division. They should be a team that can win a playoff game, and maybe then you get into the anything can happen of the playoffs. It's just such an interesting development, and it got to be an interesting point for a journalist to cover an organization which is kind of finally on the cusp. But now, how do they take that next step?
I know it. They're in the conversation. I mean, they're right there. But what is that next step? I agree with you. I'm sure there's probably some fans listening that are irate that you even said that they're not there yet, right? Because everybody in Buffalo is all jacked up and ready, to take that step. But I don't know. I kind of agree with you, and it might seem unfair. It might seem a little callous and just not fair to Josh Allen and everything. But the bar is Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the bar is Andy Reid, the Kansas City Chiefs, that monster that they've created, because until anybody stops them, and nobody's really proven they can, I mean, that's who you have to get past. And it's absolutely fair to say that, I think, because this is a team and an owner that loved Patrick Mahomes. I mean, they loved Terry Pagula loved Patrick Mahomes when it seemed nobody else did. I mean, Kuiper, McShay, all these guys had him as the 4th rated quarterback. I mean, nobody was talking about this guy when the guy who owns the Bills loved him. So I don't know. It's hard for me to kind of just remove that from my brain every time I watch the Bills play. As great as Josh Allen is, he's special. He looked incredible last night. That's the bar. I mean, because Mahomes isn't going anywhere, right? I mean, he's going to be doing this for the next 12, 15 years. So I don't know. I feel like we're going to have this conversation again and again and again. And that's what Allen has to be better than.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's no shame in you're not quite as good as Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like, there's
Right.
that's like you're not quite as good as Michael Jordan. Okay, that's I guess a thing that's allowed. But hopefully the Bills aren't the Charlotte Hornets to the Jordan era, the old school Charlotte Hornets to the Jordan era. I had to get that reference in for you.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's like, hey, if they win the division, first time since 1995, awesome. If they win a playoff game, awesome. All these things are great, but I don't know. Like, if is the goal the Super Bowl? It should be, and you've got to take down Patrick Mahomes, and we're going to see if they can.
And that's a good segue into the newsletter, and we'll get into how you started it and why you started it and all of that. But like the kind of kickoff piece was that this amazing two-parter on Josh Allen and the state of the Bills, and a lot of it is you're reporting on that, on how Terry Pagula loved Patrick Mahomes, wanted to take Patrick Mahomes, and kind of the power dynamics of why they didn't. So tell us a little bit about reporting that piece and kind of how it came together, and how not just focusing on Josh Allen, but the comparison to Mahomes and all of that. Kind of how did that piece all work and come together for you?
I've always just been so just interested and captivated by the counterfactual. And I know a lot of fans don't like to play that game. They could have had this player when they could have had that player. I mean, you can obviously play that game all day, but like, it just is so fascinating to me that, here's Doug Whaley and Jim Onis unemployed out of the NFL. And here's Patrick Mahomes, where literally if you're pouring his coffee in the morning, you're going to get a head coaching interview. I mean, everybody in his world is going to benefit and make money. The line, it's so thin between being unemployed and being, a Super Bowl champion. It's unbelievably thin. And the genesis for it, I guess, it's just having conversations. And I covered the Bills in 2015 when Whaley and Monis were around. I kind of kept in touch with Monis especially. And we're actually going to start a podcast of our own, which was kind of born out of these conversations that we had. We just love talking football. But as we were talking, he just kind of brought it up and said, look, it's pretty crazy to say, didn't even think about, but Terry Pagula loved Mahomes when nobody else really did. And one conversation kind of led to the next. And, but right before COVID got really, really bad again, we were at Resurgence downtown Buffalo, having some beers, talking about this all. We ended up talking probably for like 4 or 5 hours. I had to kind of check in with Gina, my wife, and let her know, hey, you might have to change a few more diapers. We're still talking. And it just kept going on. And it was just unbelievable. I mean, a lot of it, I couldn't print. There's even more to that story and many other stories in the Bills universe. But it was amazing. And that led to a conversation with Doug Whaley and another conversation with Doug Whaley. And it was just one thing after another. And you're right. I know I sold it at Go Long as a Josh Allen story because there is all this pressure on him because the hope just seems real right now in Western New York. But the more I reported on it, and the more you kind of dig into how one domino tipped the next, even all the way back to 2013, when Buddy Nix takes E.J. Manuel and Whaley's the assistant, and Whaley had a 3rd-round grade on him, by the way. From that point all the way to now, I just think it's so fun to just relive. I enjoy it, but I think it just helps kind of tell the story of the NFL and how we got to this point because, if they take Patrick Mahomes at 10 and they were going to take him at 27, they thought there was a good chance he'd slide to 27 when they did that trade. If they somehow end up with Mahomes, the whole game, it just changes, everything changes. And instead, Andy Reid gets his Brett Favre, as Terry said himself in the draft room. They thought he'd go, Deshaun Watson because Watson reminded him of McNabb, or Mahomes because he reminded him of Favre. Gets his Favre. The Bills get Trey White. The Bills take Josh Allen the next year, and Josh Allen is a damn good quarterback in his own right. So it really is wild.
We're like 10 minutes in, and we have to bring up the real reason we're talking here. But congratulations on the newsletter. Go Long launched a few weeks ago. What's the reaction been like? What's it been like for you seeing it and people's reaction to it over the first few weeks?
Well, thanks so much, Brian, and thank you. Just talking to you through everything just helps so much. You've got your finger on the pulse of all things sports media, so it was good to get a little nudge and some encouragement from you. As I was getting this thing ready, the response has been awesome. I guess I didn't really have any hardline expectations of subscriptions or email signups or what people would think in general, because, we're in the middle of the season and I didn't know what to expect. I wanted to just really open things up for free initially, just so people can actually read and get a sense for what I'm going to be doing long term, and obviously subscribe anytime they want at $7 a month, $70 a year. And I guess without detailing numbers, it's been amazing. I mean, people have been reading a ton. The Josh Allen story that we're talking about here, God, the numbers have really been wild to me. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect, but it seems like folks really enjoyed it. Folks are signing up and subscribing in a high number. So it gives me, just in general, like a lot of hope for journalism and sports journalism, because that was the reason I did this. I mean, you look around and, whether it's a lot of national sites, papers, outlets in general are just ditching words, moving away from words. Don't think that sells. Don't think that's the direction that we should be going. Love newspapers, but as I'm sure you talk about regularly, I mean, newspapers aren't doing that well. Some have adapted, most have not adapted. I just kind of looked at the media landscape. I'm like, you know what? I'm married. We have a 1-year-old daughter. We want to have more kids. We want to live here in Western New York forever. I'd rather bet on myself than bet on a corporation, a company that's going to change its mentality and vision on a dime, or just go under. So it might seem like a risk, but to me, it's not really a risk when you're pretty confident in your plan and confident it's going to work out. I just tried to get a sense for where sports media is in 2020. Where is it going? How concerned are other writers at other outlets with where they're at? What do they think, the future is? And over weeks, over months, the more I kind of talked to people, the more I really believed in that newsletter format and the paid publication, the paid newsletter being the future. I mean, I love how Substack puts it. I talked to one of their co-founders, Hamish McKenzie, for about an hour on a video call. And Steve Hayes, he's at the Dispatch. That might be Substack's most successful publication. And Henry Abbott at True Hoop does a great job there. And the way they all kind of put it is, this just allows people to kind of take their brains back in a sense, where we're all living on social media. We're all living on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we're inundated constantly, incessantly with just crap. A lot of good stuff too, but a lot of crap, and we can be kind of manipulated and not even know it by companies. And this is a way for people to just pay for people that they trust and they like to read, and have that direct relationship, build a community. That's why we all get into it. Like, I think I said this in my introductory post at Go Long. Like, those are the moments I treasure most in sports journalism. Like, even back when I was an intern with you and Chuck and Jim Milaro, and we're sitting around the OTH and we're getting calls from readers. I mean, you're getting a call from a 75-year-old who's pissed off they didn't get their newspaper that day. And, you're trying to explain to them and it's like, that's special. Like, that's so cool. I love that. Like, being at college at the DO, Daily Orange, and, you're with your buddies and you're just, you're debating something that you wrote about in a column, in the newspaper. And it's like, oh my God, I wouldn't want to go back and read what I wrote, but like saying that Greg Paulus is going to work out because he's a gunslinger, stuff like that. Like, and your classmates are calling you nuts or they love it. And, 5 columns later, you're saying they got to bench him for Ryan Nassib. And even today, like going back home to Salamanca, and my grandpa every time would always just kind of say, "Hey, Ty, what you working on? What do you got going? What you got cooking?" Just likes to talk about it. And I felt like newsletters through Substack and the system, the apparatus in place really brings that back to life. I don't know. I feel like you can have that sense of community. And so far, it's only been a couple of weeks, but I'm already kind of feeling it with readers. It's been great.
So I've seen other interviews you've done, including a great one in our old paper, the OTH, about this. And you mentioned that your dad had started his own business when you guys were growing up. So knowing that, what are some of the lessons? What did you see your dad doing, and what are you taking from what he did and kind of applying it to your own startup, your own company, so to speak?
No doubt. I mean, the more I kind of thought about it, Brian, it was like, yeah, I mean, seeing where the business is definitely was a big reason for doing this, and just that liberating feeling to write what you want to write, and all that stuff matters. But I probably maybe the number one reason that I guess I did this and took the plunge into self-employment is my dad and my mom. My mom had her own graphic design company too down in the southern tier, and actually did some stuff with the Times Herald, I think, back in the day. But my dad kind of making that decision, it was the late 90s, and he just, he had 3 kids and wanted to support us and wanted to stay in Western New York and be the best dad that he could be. He just bet on himself, broke away from his company, formed his own Plateau Energy. As a petroleum geologist, so he basically puts that dot on the map and decides where to drill wells. And in the Pennsylvania area, I can't really do a ton in New York, but just below the border. So, you drive a half hour, an hour and a half to work on some shallow wells. And I was pretty young when this was all going on, so I didn't really know what was going on at the time, but we've talked about it a lot since. I mean, you're talking about, really betting on yourself, mortgaging the house a few times over, that this well is going to produce. It might not. There's always the chance that it doesn't, that it's going to be a dry well. But doing the research and doing the work that he did, he took that risk, he took that chance, and he was able to never miss a game, never miss a school event. My mom was just an unbelievable mom, did everything for us, and I mean, grew up in such a the best possible family, the best possible home a kid could ever ask for. So, I mean, yeah, he's my hero. He's my inspiration. And having a family of my own, I was just kind of like, you know what? That entrepreneurial spirit's in there somewhere. It's going to kind of bet on myself and see where this goes. Because like I said, it's not a risk when you really believe that what you're doing is going to work out, just like my dad did.
So that phrase, bet on yourself, what's it mean to you?
I just think it means, obviously anything can happen. You're producing content, articles, stories, podcasts, and there's a chance nobody wants it, that nobody wants to read it, that they do want to kind of live in that world of GIFs and memes and tweets and IG posts, like that. I guess in this specific case, that's what betting on myself is to me, that I'm betting that the stories that I'm going to report on and write and produce at Go Long are stories that people are going to want to pay for. And it's not just the money. I think almost more than money, it's the time that people value more than anything. It's, everybody's so busy 24/7 and logging their daily schedule into their iCals, and every minute is accounted for. I mean, time is so valuable today that I want to write a story that is worth your time, a story that's going to kind of make you drop what you're doing and just sit down and read for 20-25 minutes, which that's, creating that habit, in those conversations that I had kind of with Henry and Hamish and those guys, like, you've got to kind of create that habit, I feel like, in media in general, not just sports media. And I feel like I feel like that in the way that the NFL is covered today, so much of it is derived from Zoom calls and the centralized messaging put out by teams. Look, I'm not going to just sit here and bash everybody. There's a lot of damn good reporters out there. There are. I mean, amazing beat writers, national writers, feature writers, no doubt. But I do feel like kind of today, there is a lot of like the same kind of stories and the same kind of stuff that just circulates around. And, there is an opportunity to provide something different. And after covering the league for over 10 years, I've got relationships with players, with scouts, with agents, coaches. I felt confident to bet on myself and provide that story that somebody just can't get anywhere else.
Right. I think that's such a good point. I always think of my students and I think of kind of teaching it. And I think that the betting on yourself idea, like, I love that notion of betting on yourself because you've got 10 years of work to back this up, right? It's not just, I'm going to bet on myself and kind of go willy-nilly into something new. You put the work into, like you said, build up that confidence, build up that repertoire, build up that contact base so that you can do it. You mentioned Zoom reporting, and knowing we've had long conversations about reporting on air and off air, and man, how hard is it to report now, especially with the NFL and given, the everything's on Zoom, and it has to be, like, we understand that it has to be because of the pandemic, because of social distancing, but how hard is that?
Right. I mean, it's not like I can just fly down to Orlando and drink and eat with Sammy Watkins for 5.5 hours talking about all those dimensions and stuff. Is he gonna really get into that all on a phone call or a Zoom? You probably not. Yeah. I mean, I miss that, no doubt. Like, I mean, I cannot wait for COVID to just get the hell out of here. For many reasons, that being one of them. I think though, like, in terms of just covering the sport, I've been really pleasantly surprised with everything I've pursued so far at Go Long. That guys they are accommodating. I mean, in the middle of a season, they are kind of dropping everything to talk for an hour here, an hour there, and they've been really engaging. And I think people like what we kind of have in store. Like, they've been really good with their time. Now, is it sitting down? And I always say, like, players and everybody in general you're happier when you're eating. Yeah, it's always a good setting to kind of talk to somebody, but you can't do that in person, but there's ways around it. And I think I've been able to do it so far. You just have as many conversations as you can, make as many connections as you can. You can still tell stories. I mean, you can still get to know these guys. And I think that they want to be heard. Like, and I think that in a weird way that a lot of these players, as much as they might say they hate the media and everything, I think at least in the conversations I've had, it's like they've been waiting to say some things. They've been waiting to just talk and open up and have that kind of conversation with a reporter to get their word out, to get their story out. So that's been good. But I guess back to, like, the Zoom thing, like, yeah, I mean, there is an open locker room, and that hurts coverage, at a beat level and a national level, especially at a beat level. It's not for writers not to be working those corners and having those conversations and building those relationships in a locker room, and for it to all be on a Zoom. I mean, a press conference in general is more of a production. It's way too formal, and everybody's kind of playing a role. And I never really ask many questions in press conference just because I just don't like them. I don't feel like it's real. And now that's all that there is, and it's via Zoom. It's not even in person. So yeah, that sucks. I sure hope, well, we'll see once, the vaccine kicks in and we all get normalcy back. Let's hope that the NFL is willing to go back to the way it was, because I think the league also suffers, when the story of the game isn't told like it could be told.
What advice do you have for young journalists, for students who are doing Zoom interviews, to kind of get that personal connection that maybe is easier to get when you're over a meal or in person with somebody, but now you're doing it over a screen? So what are some of the tips, tricks, advice that you would have to kind of make that connection with somebody over Zoom?
That's a great question. I think I'm still kind of figuring this out myself, but I've done a lot of phoners, and especially right now, I think it's, if you've got the time, and players have had the time. I haven't really gone into anything and been told by the player or his agent or the team, like, you only have, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. There hasn't been anything like that. So when you kind of know that, you can kind of go into it and just make small talk, just BS, even if you don't know the guy, maybe do a little research, try to find some kind of connection, that can help you relate to him or her. And that you got to make that small talk, and you have to still try to get to know these players as human beings above all, and make it as informal as possible. I think that's always important in person or on the phone. So doing that on the phone is still, I mean, you can still do it. These guys they might be kind of walking around their house doing different things while they're on the phone too, or in a Zoom, even better, you're looking at each other. They've been great. There's, a player I talked to for a story that will be in Friday. I was thinking it was going to be 10, 15 minutes. I wasn't really sure. We ended up talking for like an hour and a half about all kinds of stuff, just because I think he enjoyed it. He was into it. And it didn't start with, okay, you got a game Sunday. What's the plan? It started with, God, we were talking about dogs, I think. He's really into rescuing dogs. I mean, I'll tell you,
Aw.
it's Logan Ryan for the Giants, and so we're talking about that kind of stuff, and talking about the last time that we were in person. I think it was in the Baltimore visitors locker room, and he said that they stopped Lamar Jackson, like with an engage 8 defense you use on Madden. So we're kind of talking about that, and I don't know. I think it helps to kind of ease into it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Does Ed make an appearance, or did Ed make an appearance in that interview or that story? I hope he does.
Oh my God, he does not. We didn't even talk about Ed. Oh,
Come on.
no love for Ed.
Ed is the Instagram star of COVID-19 in 2020.
Oh, he's such a dingus. Oh my God, he's been one of a kind. We've called, you always have a bunch of nicknames for your dog. Like, so I might have been Gina who started it, but like all of a sudden, I think we just started calling him COVID Boy, and it
Okay.
it shortens to Cove, and then now it's just Coves. So he's known as Coves around here as much as Ed or Edmund.
We have a list somewhere of the like 40 nicknames we have for our dog Gus. Like, it's insane. So tell people a little bit about what they can expect on the newsletter if they're new to it or if they're coming to it. Like what's your breakdown? What do you do? I know you have kind of that weekly schedule, which has got to help you in terms of production, in terms of what you're going to write and when you're going to write it.
Right. I think it's so important to let people know, what they can expect, and then to deliver on that promise. I don't want to make a promise and not deliver. So I think out of the games every Sunday, I'm calling it the thread, where it's just, definitely we'll have a main story, a lead, something that hopefully is just a little different, has some meat on the bone this week. I talked to Deshaun Watson's quarterbacks coach, Quincy Avery, just on how like the Texans should go about this whole hiring coach GM thing. And you got this special talent, you better not screw it up, basically. So it was really interesting to get his perspective, because he knows Watson better than Watson knows himself. So that would be Monday. And then Wednesday is going to be kind of a wild card. More often than not, I think it'll be a player profile. So right now I'm working on a profile on Jared Goff. Talked to Goff recently, and he's so fascinating to me. I mean, I feel like, anything that goes well for the Rams, it's Sean McVay. Anything that goes wrong, it's Goff's fault. It's just such a weird narrative that I'm sure there's some truth to it, but it's like, man, I think we all would love to be acknowledged for something we do well in the world, and he never really is. And then Thursday, it's going to be kind of a throwback on Thursday. It will be a Q&A with a former player. As you know, Brian, like the former players, they're always willing to talk, at a level and more freely than anybody. So this week we'll have a Q&A with Darren Woodson, who I just always try to find an excuse to talk to. The Cowboy great. He's awesome. And Friday is hopefully going to be our signature piece, or will be our signature piece each week. Maybe it's a team feature, like the Bill story referenced, or everything going on in Minnesota with Zimmer and people thinking that, he's a jerk, but some people loving that approach. And this week we'll have a deep dive on Logan Ryan and the Giants. So that will kind of be the setup. We're going to start a podcast this week as well. If news happens or anything, relevant that I feel like should be a part of the newsletter process, I'll just do it. But we'll try to keep feeding this beast through the rest of the season and in the off season.
Say, that is a crazy, I mean, you were doing like regular features, but that's a crazy workload you've made for yourself here.
Yeah, it's definitely a change. I was just talking to Matt Fairburn about this recently too, because we're really good friends, and we competed against each other on the beat. I think that beat kind of attack mode is still in me, from the time on the Packers and on the Bills, and wanting to just, give your readers something that's worth their time. And they kind of become your boss, because I feel like the appetite's always there. So it has been a change, but it hasn't, because I was kind of approaching the job this way, back to Green Bay and Buffalo, and now it's just through more of a long form lens, which, like anything in life, if you kind of budget your time and plan accordingly, I think it'll all work out.
How you balance out like that, the kind of weekly beast that you're feeding for your readers and for this newsletter, with that desire for the longer form stories? Like, I know it's about time budgeting and that, but how do you kind of balance out the cranking out, for lack of a better word, 3-4 pieces a week, while still making sure that they're at that level that you've talked about wanting to do?
Right. The absolute last thing I want to do is cheapen anything or write something that's incomplete. That's key. I mean, that's such a great point. I think, in terms of there's 24 hours in a day. So in the past, maybe I'd stay up late at night, pour a little bit of whiskey, get those juices flowing and write a story then. Maybe it's our daughter too, and just that kind of changing the time frame of things. But now I've been waking up at 4:35 a.m. and just getting right into it. So by the we're talking here, and it's 10:44 right now. By the time you hit 10:11, you got a lot done. I mean, that's a prime period where you can do a lot of writing, and then when that period's done, into the afternoon, that's when you can make a lot of those calls, have a lot of those interviews, conversations around the league, and constantly be reporting. The bigger team, features, that's going to require, dozens of interviews, and you just got to kind of chip away at it and not rush it if it doesn't need to be rushed. But I feel like there's just so many amazing stories out there to be told that you can't keep up a pace like this.
So I've asked you this every time I've had you on. I ask everybody I have, what's the best thing you've read lately?
Oh my gosh. All right. This is actually easy. You don't have to think that hard. Three Ring Circus, Jeff Pearlman. Just
oh, so good.
Oh my God. Loved it. It's a long book, but I think I finished it in 3-4 days because you just cannot put it down. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just, Jeff is just so good at taking these topics and these teams and these players that we think we know everything about, and then just constantly finding new stories and anecdotes and layers I mean, the Kobe Bryant material in that book is unbelievable, and everybody who cares about basketball should read it because it's a side of Kobe Bryant that I think we maybe knew about a little bit, but we didn't know it to that extent.
Right. And I've had Jeff on numerous times. His writing is so fun. It really is less biography of this team and more like, hey, I found out these crazy stories and I've got to tell you them. And the way he writes is just it's just all of his books are so fun, but that one stands out.
Exactly. And it's so great when you can kind of, at the end of it, when he's just kind of talking about how he reported on the book, I think he had a story of going to Isaiah Ryder's house.
Yes.
Right. And he's like, I don't know if Ryder's just going to punch me in the face and tell me to get lost. And then he's like, we end up, sitting down and talking about the Lakers, and he's unafraid too. You know what I mean? Yep. All these players are talking to him and giving him their time. And there's going to be some sides to Isaiah Ryder and my man Glenn Rice, who, he was my hero as a kid. There's sides to these guys that are pretty unflattering, and Jeff isn't afraid to go there, which is so important because I don't think you see enough of that today. Maybe there's this fear of social media where you just think there's going to be backlash and everybody's going to call everything a hit piece and everybody's going to call you a hater. And I think that can kind of get into the brains of a lot of younger reporters that are covering sports. And Jeff is the perfect example. You shouldn't give a damn what people think. I mean, our job is to try to tell the full story and the full portrait of a person or a team or a situation. And he does that better than anybody.
So the newsletter is Go Long with Tyler Dunne. It is at golongtd.com. Links in the show notes. You should subscribe. It's worth your time. It's worth your money. And Tyler, we will do this again. After your next Sammy Watkins piece, we'll sit down and chat about this. But
hell yeah. Definitely book it. Let's make that. This is definitely motivation to get Sammy again. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make that happen.
All right, Ty. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for listening to The Other 51. Show notes for this and all of our episodes can be found at sportsmediaguide.com by clicking on the Other 51 tab. If you like the show, please consider giving it a rating and a review, either at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help people find the show. Our theme music is by Ellie Moritz.